The crystal tumbler was halfway to Dominic Moretti's lips when Elena Rivera's hand shot out, her fingers closing around his wrist with surprising strength. "Don't drink that," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the restaurant's jazz quartet. The entire private dining room fell silent. 8 of New York's most dangerous men stared at the waitress who had just touched their boss, a death sentence in their world. Dominic's dark eyes locked onto hers, and Elena saw her own reflection in them, terrified but resolute. She had spent 4 years hiding from her past, for years serving drinks instead of saving lives, for years pretending she wasn't Dr. Elena Rivera, the toxicologist who had testified against the Alvarez cartel. But watching the poison swirl in that glass, the same compound that had killed her sister, she realized some things were worth dying for. "Excuse me." Dominic's voice was quiet, controlled, but Elena could hear the lethal edge beneath the surface. Elena's mouth went dry, but she forced herself to maintain eye contact. "That whiskey is laced with thallium sulfate," she said, her voice growing stronger. "You have approximately 30 seconds before the first symptoms hit if you drink it. After that, you'll be dead in 4 minutes." The silence that followed was absolute. Dominic leaned back in his chair, studying her with the focus of a predator. And how would a waitress know anything about poison? "Because," Elena said, lifting her chin defiantly, "I have a PhD in toxicology from Harvard Medical School, and I've spent my entire career studying compounds like this. That's not just thallium. It's mixed with a proprietary chelating agent that makes it absorb faster. This wasn't bought on the dark web. This was created by a professional." Dominic's expression remained unreadable, but his second-in-command reached for his weapon. "Boss, she could be, what's her name?" Dominic interrupted, never taking his eyes off Elena. "Elena Rivers. Your real name?" She hesitated, then made her choice. 4 years of hiding were about to end. Dr. Elena Rivera, former toxicologist at Harvard, former expert witness in the Sebastian Alvarez trial. Something shifted in Dominic's expression, recognition, understanding, and something else she couldn't identify. "The Alvarez cartel," he said quietly. "You're the one who proved Sebastian poisoned his girlfriend, that he used systematic thallium exposure over 6 months." "My sister," Elena corrected, her voice breaking. "Isabella was my sister. And yes, I proved he murdered her when everyone else wanted to believe she was just another addict." One of Dominic's men grabbed the bottle, examining it with professional efficiency. "Boss, the seal's been tampered with. Recently." "She's right." Another pulled out his phone, barking orders in rapid Italian. "Lock down the building. No one leaves. Find out who had access to the bar." But Dominic never looked away from Elena. "Your testimony," he said softly. "It destroyed your life." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "My parents disowned me the day of my doctoral graduation. Said I betrayed the family that took care of us. They chose the cartel over their own daughter. I lost my position at Harvard, lost my research funding. The Alvarez brothers put a bounty on my head. So yes, Mr. Moretti, my life was destroyed. But 17 months ago, Sebastian died in prison. Ironically, from the same poison he used on Isabella. At least my sister got justice." Dominic stood slowly, his 6'4" frame unfolding with predatory grace. He walked around the table until he stood directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive, masculine, dangerous. "You just saved my life," he said quietly. "Why?" Elena glanced at the table, at the photo of the little girl with dark curls and Dominic's intense eyes. "Because I saw the picture of your daughter. And I know what it's like to grow up wondering if you're the reason your parent is gone. I know what it feels like to be told you're worthless because you chose truth over loyalty. I couldn't let another child lose their father when I had the knowledge to prevent it." For just a second, Dominic's dangerous mask cracked, revealing the father underneath. "Do you realize what you've done? Prevented a homicide?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You've made yourself valuable to a very dangerous man, and you've made enemies of whoever tried to kill me tonight." Before Elena could respond, the lights went out. The private dining room plunged into darkness. Dominic's hand shot out, gripping Elena's arm, firm but not painful, protective rather than restraining. "Get down," he commanded, his voice deadly calm. Glass shattered in the main dining room. Screams erupted from the kitchen. Gunshots echoed through the restaurant. And Elena's scientific mind tried to process what was happening, but terror was overriding logic. "They're here for me," she whispered, the truth hitting her. "The Alvarez brothers. They found me. They're here for both of us now," Dominic corrected grimly, drawing a weapon from his shoulder holster with practiced ease. The transformation from businessman to predator was instantaneous. "But mostly for you. You can identify their poison, their methods. You're the only person who could prove who tried to kill me tonight." His men moved with military precision, forming a protective circle around them. The door exploded inward in a shower of splinters. 4 men in tactical gear burst through, weapons raised. Dominic moved like lightning, pushing Elena behind an overturned table as bullets shattered wine bottles above their heads. The firefight lasted 45 seconds that felt like 45 years. When the shooting stopped, the attackers lay motionless, and Dominic was hauling Elena to her feet. "You're hurt," she noticed immediately, seeing blood seeping through his white shirt near his ribs. Her medical training kicked in automatically. "I'm fine. Move." They ran through the kitchen's back corridors, past terrified staff hiding behind prep tables. Dominic's hand never left the small of her back, guiding and protecting. In the alley behind Costello's, a black SUV waited with the engine running. As they sped through Manhattan streets, Elena examined Dominic's wound. "You need medical attention." "That bullet," he caught her hand. "What I need is to keep you alive. You're under my protection now. I didn't ask for your protection. You didn't ask to be hunted by the Alvarez cartel, either." His voice softened. "Elena, they won't stop. Not until you're dead. You're a threat they can't afford to ignore." 4 years earlier, Elena had stood outside her parents' Boston home on the morning of her doctoral graduation, her hands shaking as she dialed their number for the 19th time. 19 calls that went straight to voicemail while she stood alone in her cap and gown, watching other families celebrate together. The ceremony was in 90 minutes, and the truth sat like lead in her stomach. They weren't coming. They had never planned to come. When her mother finally called, the words cut like surgical blades. "Elena, we're not coming. After what you did, testifying against the Alvarez family, destroying our reputation, we cannot support this charade. But it's my doctoral graduation. I'm the youngest toxicologist to earn this degree from Harvard. My research on a degree in poison." Her father's voice cut in, sharp with contempt. "Congratulations on wasting 8 years becoming a professional murderer. I studied toxicology to save lives, to understand how compounds affect. You destroyed lives," her mother interrupted coldly. "The Alvarez family took care of us for years. They funded your education, our home, everything. And you repaid them by putting Sebastian Alvarez in prison with your testimony. He killed people." Elena's voice broke. "He killed Isabella. Your sister overdosed because she was weak," her father said brutally. "Not because Sebastian gave her the drugs. That was her choice. Her failure." The words hit Elena like physical blows. Isabella hadn't overdosed. She'd been murdered, slowly, deliberately poisoned by Sebastian when she tried to leave him. Elena had spent 2 years analyzing her sister's hair samples, blood work, tissue samples, proving the systematic thallium exposure that everyone else had dismissed as addiction. "We're done supporting this vendetta," her mother continued, her voice clinical and cold. "Don't call us again. As far as we're concerned, we lost both daughters 4 years ago." The line went dead. Elena walked through that graduation ceremony in a daze, accepting her doctorate, summa cum laude, groundbreaking research in forensic toxicology, with tears streaming down her face. Only her best friend Maria knew they weren't tears of joy, but of devastating loss. That night, alone in her tiny apartment, Elena stared at her doctoral diploma and felt worthless. If her own parents couldn't see her value, what did that say about her? The months that followed became a nightmare. Despite exceptional credentials, positions were scarce. Research hospitals wanted experienced doctors. Pharmaceutical companies ran background checks and discovered her cartel testimony. Doors slammed shut before she walked through them. By month 6, someone left a dead rat on her doorstep with a note. Rats die from poison. That's when Elena realized the Alvarez cartel hadn't forgotten. Sebastian was in prison, but his brothers weren't, and they had long memories. She ran, changed her name to Elena Rivers, dyed her distinctive auburn hair dark brown, moved to New York, and found work at the only place that would hire her without questions, Costello's, an upscale Italian restaurant in Manhattan. For 4 years, she survived. Her feet ached from 14-hour shifts. Drunk customers grabbed at her, made crude comments, looked through her like she was invisible, or worse, like she was nothing. Every night, Elena collapsed in a bed and wondered if her parents were right, if she'd wasted her life, if this was all she would ever be. But then something unexpected began to happen. Elena couldn't help but observe a businessman who ordered extra garlic to mask bitter heart medication, a woman who only drank bottled water because she understood contamination risks, a teenager who separated ingredients due to chemical sensitivity. Her toxicologist brain was always working, always seeing invisible patterns. She started quietly suggesting menu changes to customers whose medications might conflict with certain ingredients. She'd ensure the kitchen prepared safe meals for those with genuine health concerns. "You're different," Antonio, the owner, told her one evening. "You see people, really see them." Elena felt something stir, something that had been dormant since that devastating phone call on graduation day. Purpose. Maybe she wasn't working in a lab, but she was still using her knowledge, still protecting people in small, invisible ways. She was still worth something. The safe house in Brooklyn was surprisingly comfortable. After Dominic's personal doctor treated his gunshot wound, a graze, painful but not life-threatening, Elena sat on a leather couch, watching him pace. "This is my fault," she said. "I should have just walked away." Dominic turned to face her. "You saved my life tonight. Twice. I'm in your debt. I don't want you to be in my debt. I just want—" Her voice broke. "I just want to stop losing everything." Something in his expression softened. He moved to sit beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. "Tell me about your sister." So Elena told him. About Isabella's bright smile and brilliant mind. About how she'd fallen in love with Sebastian Alvarez, not knowing he was cartel royalty. About the slow poisoning that everyone dismissed as drug addiction until Elena had fought for the autopsy, the tissue analysis, the truth. She was 26, Elena whispered. She had her whole life ahead of her, and my parents blamed me for pursuing justice. Said I destroyed the family's reputation. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he took her hand. "My father died when I was 16, poisoned by his own brother. Everyone said it was a heart attack. I watched my uncle pour something into the coffee when he thought no one was looking. But I was just a kid. I didn't understand until years later." "Did you get justice?" Dominic's expression went cold. "Eventually. But it took years, and by then, the damage was done." He squeezed her hand gently. "What I'm saying is, I understand what you did. The cost of pursuing truth when everyone else wants to look away. You're not alone in that, Elena." For the first time in 4 years, Elena felt truly seen. Not as the waitress, not as the disgraced scientist, but as someone who'd made the hard choice and paid the price. "What happens now?" she asked softly. "Now we figure out who tried to poison me and why." And we make sure the Alvarez brothers understand that touching you means declaring war on me. Over the following week, Elena lived in the safe house while Dominic's people investigated. She learned that his world was more complicated than she'd imagined. Legitimate businesses, charitable foundations, and a daughter named Sophia, who he adored with fierce intensity. "She's 6, Dominic told her one evening, showing photos on his phone. Sophia in a soccer uniform, grinning. Sophia reading a book far too advanced for her age. Sophia laughing as Dominic pushed her on a swing. Her mother died in childbirth. It's just been us ever since." Elena saw the raw love in his eyes, the vulnerability he showed no one else. "She's beautiful. She's everything." His voice was rough with emotion. "That's why I can never afford to be careless. Why I need to know who's trying to kill me. Because if something happens to me, Sophia becomes a pawn in a very dangerous game." Understanding crashed over Elena. This wasn't just about revenge or pride. This was about a father protecting his child from a world that would destroy her the moment he showed weakness. "I can help," Elena said suddenly. "The poison, thallium sulfate, isn't common. It requires specific knowledge to use effectively. If we analyze the exact formulation, I might be able to identify who created it." Dominic studied her for a long moment. "That would put you at even more risk." "I've been at risk since the moment I testified against Sebastian Alvarez." Elena's voice was steady, certain. "At least this way, I'm using my skills for something that matters. I'm not just running anymore. I'm fighting back." Something shifted in Dominic's expression, respect, admiration, and something deeper that made Elena's breath catch. "Then we fight together," he said quietly. The laboratory Dominic's people set up was surprisingly sophisticated, better equipment than Elena had access to at Harvard. She worked for 3 days straight, analyzing the poison scotch, breaking down the chemical composition, identifying the unique signatures. "Whoever made this is a professional," Elena explained, showing Dominic the molecular analysis on her computer screen. "The thallium is mixed with a proprietary chelating agent that makes it more readily absorbed by the body. This isn't something you buy on the dark web. This was created by someone with advanced chemistry knowledge, someone who understands not just how to kill, but how to kill efficiently. Can you identify them?" Elena pulled up a database she'd built during her years at Harvard, a collection of chemical signatures from known poisoners, their methods, their calling cards. Every chemist has a unique approach, like a fingerprint. The way they balance compounds, the purity they achieve, the specific additives they use for stability. This particular formulation. She paused, her blood running cold as the match appeared on screen. "It's identical to the compound used to kill Sebastian Alvarez in prison." Dominic leaned forward, his expression darkening. "Someone used the same poison that killed your sister's murderer?" "Not just someone." Elena's hands trembled as she pulled up another file, her voice barely above a whisper. "Me. This is my formulation. The one I developed as part of my doctoral thesis on undetectable poisons and their antidotes. The research that was sealed in classified university records after I testified at Sebastian's trial. The implication hung between them, terrible and undeniable. Someone stole your research, Dominic said quietly. Someone with access to Harvard sealed records used your own work to try to kill me." Elena felt sick. Her research, her life's work on understanding and counteracting poisons, had been weaponized, turned into the very thing she devoted her career to preventing. "There are only 3 people who would have access to those records," she said, her voice shaking as she pulled up names on her screen. "My doctoral advisor, Dr. Patricia Chun, the university's ethics board chairman, Dr. Michael Strauss, and," her voice trailed off as the 3rd name appeared, "Dr. Marcus Rivera, her father." "No," Elena whispered, even as pieces fell into place like shards of broken glass. "He wouldn't. He couldn't." But even as she said it, memories flooded back. Her father's strange questions about her research in the months before Isabella's death. His fury, disproportionate fury, when she testified against the Alvarez family. His connections to the cartel through his exclusive private medical practice. Dominic's phone buzzed, shattering her spiraling thoughts. He answered, listened for a moment, then his expression went deadly cold in a way that made Elena's blood freeze. When his voice was ice, he hung up and turned to Elena. Your father just tried to access Sophia's school. My security stopped him at the gate, but he had a syringe filled with what our people are testing now. Based on your research, I'm betting it's another one of your formulations. Elena felt the world tilt beneath her feet. He's going after your daughter because of me. He's going after my daughter because he's being paid by the Alvarez brothers to eliminate threats. Dominic's voice was controlled, but Elena could see the fury coiled beneath. You mean anyone who could expose their operations or disrupt their revenge. But what he doesn't understand is that he just made the biggest mistake of his life. We need to stop him, Elena said, standing abruptly, her scientist's mind already cataloging the possibilities. If he has access to my research, he knows how to make at least 17 different undetectable poisons. He could kill dozens of people before anyone realizes what's happening. We have to end this now. Dominic studied her face, seeing the determination carved into every line. You understand what stopping him means? He's your father. He stopped being my father the day he chose the Alvarez cartel over his own daughters, Elena said, her voice steel wrapped in pain. Isabella deserved better. I deserve better. And Sophia, an innocent 6-year-old child, deserves to grow up safe from monsters like him. They found Dr. Marcus Rivera in his private practice in Upper Manhattan, packing up his office with the desperate efficiency of a man who knew his time was running out. He looked older than Elena remembered, grayer, thinner, with the hunted expression of someone who'd sold his soul and was now trying to escape the consequences. Hello, Father, Elena said, stepping into the office with Dominic and 2 of his men behind her. Marcus spun around, his face going pale. Elena, how did you find you? I'm a trained toxicologist, Father. One of the best in the country, according to my doctoral committee. Tracking chemical signatures is literally what I do. She moved closer, her voice steady despite the pain crushing her chest. You stole my research. You used my work, my life's work, to poison people, to try to kill Dominic Moretti, to try to murder his 6-year-old daughter. What? You don't understand the position you put us in, Marcus said desperately, his hands shaking as he clutched a leather briefcase. After you testified against Sebastian, the Alvarez brothers threatened everything we had. They said they'd destroy us, destroy the practice, destroy our lives unless I helped them. Your research was the only thing valuable enough to buy our safety. Our safety. Elena's voice rose, years of suppressed rage finally breaking through. You threw me to the wolves. You disowned me on the day I should have been celebrating the biggest achievement of my life. You told me I was worthless, that I destroyed the family, that I was nothing but a murderer with a fancy degree. You let me believe for 4 years that I was the problem. And all along, you were using my work to commit actual murder. I was protecting us, protecting your mother, protecting the family name. You were protecting yourself. Elena's voice cracked with emotion. Isabella is dead because of people like you. People who value money and reputation over truth and justice. And now you're trying to kill an innocent child to cover your tracks? What happened to you? When did you become the kind of man who would poison a 6-year-old girl? Marcus's expression hardened, the mask of respectability finally cracking to reveal something ugly underneath. Dominic Moretti is a criminal. His daughter is collateral damage in a world you don't understand. You were always too naive, Elena. Too idealistic. You think justice matters, but it doesn't. Only survival matters. Only power. I understand perfectly, Elena said, her voice cold as winter. You've become exactly what you always claimed to hate. A murderer hiding behind respectability and wealth. The difference between you and Dominic is that he's honest about who he is. You're just a coward. She pulled out a thick file folder, dropping it on his desk with a decisive thud. That's a complete chemical analysis of every poison you've created using my research. It's also a detailed timeline of everyone you've killed or attempted to kill in the last 4 years, cross-referenced with financial payments from the Alvarez cartel. Bank records, encrypted communications, toxicology reports, everything. I've sent copies to the FBI, the DEA, the Massachusetts Medical Board, and 3 major newspapers. Marcus lunged for the file, but Dominic's men were faster, pinning him against the desk with professional efficiency. You destroyed my life. Marcus spat at Elena, his face twisted with rage. Everything I built, everything I achieved, gone because you couldn't let the past stay buried. Because you couldn't be practical. No, Elena said quietly, tears streaming down her face. You destroyed your own life the moment you chose money over your daughter's. The moment you decided your reputation mattered more than Isabella's life. The moment you tried to kill a child to protect your secrets. I'm just making sure you face the consequences of those choices. As federal agents burst through the door, summoned by Dominic's strategically timed call, Elena walked away from her father for the last time. She heard him shouting her name, heard him making threats and promises, but she didn't look back. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. 3 months later, Elena stood in a sunlit laboratory at Columbia University, her name prominently displayed on the door in polished brass letters. Dr. Elena Rivera, Director of Forensic Toxicology Research. Dominic had used his considerable influence, both legitimate and otherwise, to secure her the position, to restore her reputation in the academic community, to give her back the life and career her father had stolen. But more importantly, he'd given her something she'd never thought she'd have again, a family. The door burst open with the enthusiasm only a 6-year-old could muster. Sophia ran in, her dark curls bouncing, brandishing a paper with an enormous red A+ at the top. Elena. Did you see? I got an A on my science project about chemical reactions. Elena scooped the little girl into a hug, her heart swelling with a love she'd thought she'd lost forever. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Your volcano experiment was absolutely amazing. Very impressive observations. Daddy helped with the chemistry calculations, but I did all the observations myself. Sophia beamed with pride. Just like you taught me. Observe first, then form a hypothesis, then test it. Dominic appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with a smile that transformed his dangerous face into something warm and genuine and achingly tender. She's a natural scientist. I wonder where she gets that from. Over the past 3 months, Elena's relationship with Dominic had evolved from protector and protected to something neither of them had expected. He'd courted her carefully, respectfully, showing her that beneath the dangerous exterior was a man of honor, integrity, and surprising gentleness. A man who read bedtime stories to his daughter with different voices for each character. A man who donated anonymously to causes he believed in. A man who understood that true strength meant knowing when to be soft. Can we get gelato? Sophia asked hopefully, tugging on Elena's hand. To celebrate my A? Please. Absolutely, Elena said, exchanging a warm glance with Dominic. But only if your dad promises not to have his security team check it for poison first. Dominic laughed, a sound she'd grown to treasure. I make no promises. Some habits die hard. As they walked through the Columbia campus together, Sophia, between them, holding both their hands and chattering about her next science project, Elena reflected on how completely her life had transformed. She'd lost her birth family, but gained a chosen one. She'd been called worthless, but had proved her value through courage and expertise. She'd been told she destroyed everything she touched, but she'd built something beautiful from the ruins. Her father was awaiting trial on 17 counts of murder and conspiracy. The Alvarez cartel's operations had been exposed and dismantled, their leadership scattered or imprisoned. And Elena had not only reclaimed her career, but expanded it, now training the next generation of forensic toxicologists to use their knowledge for justice rather than profit. Elena, Dominic said as they reached his car, his voice carrying a note of nervousness she'd never heard before. Before we go, I want to ask you something. Sophia giggled and covered her mouth with both hands, bouncing on her toes with barely contained excitement. Dominic pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a stunning ring. Elegant, simple, perfect. Exactly what Elena would have chosen for herself if she'd dared to dream. Sophia and I have been talking, he continued, his dark eyes locked on hers with an intensity that made her heart race. And we both agree. We'd like to know if you'd consider making this permanent. Being part of our family. Forever. Elena's breath caught, tears already forming. I know we've only known each other a few months, Dominic said quickly, with an almost boyish uncertainty that made him even more endearing. And I know my world is complicated and dangerous. But you're the bravest, most brilliant, most compassionate woman I've ever met. You saved my life, protected my daughter, and taught me that integrity and honor still exist even in the darkest places. You make me want to be better. You make everything better. I love you, Elena. We both do. Say yes. Sophia called out, unable to contain herself any longer. Please say yes. I already told all my friends at school that you're going to be my mom. Elena laughed through her tears, her heart so full she thought it might burst. Yes, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Dominic slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, tender and fierce, gentle and passionate, a promise of protection and partnership and love that would weather any storm. I love you too, Elena whispered against his lips. Both of you. So much. Sophia squealed with delight and threw her arms around both of them, creating a three-person hug that felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. As they drove through the city, their city now, their home, Elena thought about the broken woman she'd been 4 years ago, standing outside her parents' house, told she was worthless and had destroyed everything, working as a waitress, wondering if her life had any meaning, running from shadows, convinced she deserved the fear and loneliness. That woman had been wrong about everything. She hadn't destroyed anything. She'd been building something stronger from the ruins. A life defined not by others' judgments, but by her own choices and courage. A family bound not by blood, but by love, respect, and mutual protection. A future where her expertise would save lives, where her knowledge would train others, where her story would inspire women who'd been told they weren't enough. The waitress who'd whispered, "Don't drink that," had become a doctor again, a mother, a partner, a warrior for justice. She'd proven that worth isn't determined by family approval or prestigious positions. It's claimed through courage. That transformation isn't just about surviving trauma. It's about turning pain into purpose, fear into strength, loss into love. And every day, Elena would teach that lesson to Sophia, to her students, to every person who'd ever been told they weren't valuable enough, smart enough, strong enough. Because she was enough. She always had been. She just needed to believe it herself. And now, surrounded by love and purpose and hard-won peace, wrapped in the arms of her chosen family, she finally, completely, wholly, truly did